afternoon once more. It's exactly 5 minutes past 3, and we'll now start. We're giving that 5 minutes for other people to join. My name is Michael Lokinyi. I'm the head of sales at M-Changa, and thank you so much for taking your time to join this webinar. So we will start immediately. With me is my colleague Naomi Sang. Naomi, you'll kindly just introduce yourself as we start.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Naomi Sang and I lead our communications and marketing for M-Changa. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for that, Naomi. For those who are maybe joining us for the first time and you don't know what M-Changa is an online fundraising platform that provides Kenyans with a secure, transparent, and convenient way to raise funds. We ensure that fundraisers reach their fundraising goals quickly, easily, and with the lowest cost possible. In M-Changa, we have very unique features. We are having some amazing features that are there to at least give our fundraisers easy and quick way to raise funds. And today we've just come up with a very interesting and amazing topic under the features that we are having, that if utilized well, will really give us the ease to reaching more audience and even having a successful fundraising. So without wasting time, I'll just take this time to again take it back to my colleague Naomi to just take us forward as we discuss further to this unique feature that is about she's going to introduce to us. Thank you so much, and karibu sana, Naomi.
Okay, thank you so much, Michael, for the introduction, and also thank you everyone who has found time to come and be with us today. And I think a nice way to start this session would have been with me saying the words Paukwa and having all of you say Pakawa. But I think because we have almost 47 people here, that will cause a little bit of chaos with the noise. I will let this be a monologue and you can join me from where you are. And I will say Paukwa and I'll just respond to myself and say Pakawa. And why do I choose? Okay, thank you, Michael, for that. Yeah, why do I choose to start with these two words is because I believe each and every one of us in the session, you are very familiar with these words. And in that familiarity, it is also in the similar way that I believe that we all understand the influence the stories have, not only to us as individuals, but to us as an African people. And for that, over the years, I believe we've been able to see how stories have been able to bring us together, how stories have demonstrated how similar we are as a people, and also how stories have given our storytellers the chance to be able to relate and explain to us what they will love for us to hear and understand in using different techniques. And now understanding the amount of influence that stories have and also how powerful a tool it is, today we hope to have this discussion where we are now going to be able to learn, share on how we can now use this tool to influence the success of our fundraisers. And so I hope that we are all going to have a fun and exciting session. And also please feel free to ask all the questions. We will be happy to answer them. And also we look forward to learning from you guys. And just to now move on to introduction of the speakers, I would like to introduce our first speaker, who is Eunice Kilonzo. Eunice Kilonzo, if you know Eunice loves stories. And for that, she is a non-multimedia storyteller who has close to 10 years experience in award-winning content generation in the field of health, science, and development. Currently, Eunice serves at Safaricom as the content manager, and she has previously worked at UNEP as a consultant, where she was telling stories about coral reefs, also at the African Population and Health Research Center, where she was working closely with researchers and scientists to help them break down the complex science issues into a language that as the common wananchi can be able to properly understand. She has also worked at Nation Media Group as a senior health reporter and also runs an online storytelling campaign called Kalunde Lands that tells stories about creators. And just from that, you can tell that stories and Eunice, same was up here. So Eunice, please say hi to us, and then we can introduce the next speaker.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Naomi. Gosh, okay. You know, when you hear someone talk about you, you're like, oh my God, is that me? Yeah, so I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to share some of the lessons that I've picked along the way around storytelling, and more so around storytelling for fundraising, which will have an exciting session in a short while. Yeah, let me not preempt anything. Let me take it back to Naomi so that I wait for my turn.
Okay, thank you, Eunice. So our second speaker is Matt Roberts Davis. And Matt, if you've been in the field of fundraising, you most likely know Matt. He's been practicing crowdfunding since around 2015, and he has a vast experience in the field, with his main mission being that he hopes that every African individual, business, and organization has access to crowdfunding. And in line with this mission, he's been able to currently, he serves at Thundafund, which is a reward-based crowdfunding platform that operates in South Africa, Gambia, and Kenya as the COO. And previous to that, he was working at M-Changa as well as the general manager. And also, Matt has worked prior to his experience in crowdfunding with significantly big fintech companies that raise funds to support entrepreneurs. And so through this experience and the experience he has gained over the years, he will be able to really relate to us the concept of storytelling and how it applies mostly to businesses and organizations. And he is yet to join, but he will be joining in about 3 minutes. He was just stuck in traffic. Yeah, and he will be able to say hi to us when he joins. For now, please let's enjoy the session. Make sure you learn something, and we can have Eunice taking us through the session on storytelling. So welcome, Eunice.
Thank you so much, Naomi. So I will go right up and share my screen. Okay, just a second. I don't know if you guys can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Oh, sorry, I jumped the gun. Okay, so as you've been mentioned, as Naomi has mentioned, my name is Eunice. I love to tell stories, and I hope that from this session, the next 8 or so slides, you'll be able to see how each of us can tell stories, and how stories are very important in all that we do, regardless of which point you're in. You can tell your story very well. So still, just so that we get a sense of why this is important, I want you to understand that storytelling and fundraising are really almost the same. They're somewhat similar. In the sense that fundraising is a very human-centered enterprise. You don't do fundraising on your own. You don't do it. Organizations just don't set up to do fundraising. They're doing it for people. The same way as stories. Stories are about people, are about community, are about love, are about passions, are about issues that people are that affect them so deeply that they want to talk about. So you will see that the similarities in storytelling and fundraising are really critical, even as you're moving forward into how you do it best, how you do it better, and how you can use that to achieve your ends that you set out to do in fundraising. Still tied on this is that fundraising, most times people, when they think about fundraising, they're thinking about, oh, it's money. Someone asks for something, then they get it. But it shouldn't be like that, because fundraising, as I've mentioned, is really about the community. It's about the people. It's about sharing those issues that are very important to us, and saying and bringing in people to share in those concerns as well. Okay, and so I'll go to the second slide, and here it really just tells you what stories are about. Stories are about power. At the top of it, really, at the top there, it's about power, and power here means the capacity to influence the actions, the beliefs, the conduct of people. So stories have that capacity. They have that the stories that you read and you're moved to action. You're like, okay, can I put in my $5? Can I put in my 5 shillings? Can I put in? So it moves you. The others have not have done it, but you did it. But at the back also is that stories are about emotions. Stories are about things that move us. They have a particular mission. They tell us, okay, so if I'm doing a story about access to healthcare services, the emotion there is to this is what happens if you don't get the services. This is what happens if you get timely treatment. So they trigger something in you. They move you. And of course, stories are about impact. The impact that if as an organization, the impact that you're having in the community, as a person, the impact that you're having on the people around you. So stories have that possibility and have these three really strong superpowers. And so when you think about stories, stories are really are a state-of-the-art technology. Most times you hear state-of-the-art and all that, but when you think about it, stories are state-of-the-art because they speak to you. You know, the voices, the people that, you know, people who look like you, people who sound like you, they speak to your heart. And so I mean, without much saying, really, they connect us to others. As it is now, our biggest story that everybody across the world is sharing right now is COVID. COVID is our biggest story that we are all going through the same thing, all of us. They touch at our heart. So you'll see how then, knowing that it's something that is of the heart, how then do you make sure that you tell a story, a fundraising story that connects not just to others in terms of their heart, but also in their minds, and then also ultimately to work together in community to get the support that you need. Okay. And so whenever people are thinking about a story, probably there are those of us in this meeting who know, you know, what a story looks like. The journalists know, you know, a story, you know, the people and such. And I want to give you, this is a little cheat code of what, if you're thinking about doing your story, a fundraising story, these are some of the things you need to think about. You need to think about, one, the people. Who is telling this story? Whose voice is telling this story? So if you're fundraising on issues around, say, you need money to go to India, for instance, to get a kidney transplant. You are the person. This is your voice. This is the person who's talking about this. So whenever you're doing your fundraising story, it has to be very clear. Don't make it vague where you don't have, you know, you don't have people or the voice of people who matter, or people who's affected by the problem, which brings me to the second point. Fundraising stories are about what is the problem? What is the conflict? In the instance of going to India, the story could be, I need to get a kidney transplant. It could be something around you're mobilizing people to raise money, you know, to support issues of climate change, for instance. So that is the problem. It's a conflict. It's shifting what you already know, what you're passionate about. It's challenging that. Then there's the so what that this is happening. So what that you know, you need this particular treatment, or so what that you need the community to gather around and support your cause. The so what here could be, if we do not act, let's say if it's a climate change concern, if we do not act in good time, then we wouldn't have a plan to stay in. So then, you know, you have to be very clear on the so what, why should we as an audience care about your concern, and the impact of the problem on the person's life, as well as the impact of what that support will do to this person. So for a fundraising story would be, please help me raise 500,000. I need to go to India for a kidney transplant so that I can go back to school, so that I can get back to work, so that I can support my family. If you do this, then I will continue doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The impact is very clear. Stories, fundraising stories, the biggest ask, and you'll see this a lot, is the call to action. What are you asking someone to do? Are you telling them, please contribute $5, please share this with your network? So it's a very clear call to action, because then the audience is not just reading to say, oh, okay, I've seen this story that you've written, but what are you asking them to do? But above all, you know, fundraising stories, it has to be truthful. And this is very important, because we know, we've seen cases of people, you know, coming up with fictitious stories on you know, with fraudulent, oh, I need money because I need to go to school. And then you discover, oh, this person actually, they were just fundraising to do something else. So a good fundraising story has to be truthful. It has to be authentic. It has to really, you don't need to force anything. You say it as it is. And it has to be personal. If I get this help, I will be able to do, you know, it's very personal. It speaks to that person. So you need, whenever you're thinking of a story, think about the people, the fundraising story, and you could use it in so many ways. If you're fundraising for your organization, say you want to raise money so that you can set up toilets or libraries or whatever, who is going to benefit from this? What problem are you trying to solve? The so what, the impact, the call to action, of your audience, and then of course bringing in the truthfulness of what your issue is about, making sure it's authentic and it's personal. Okay, and so now that you know what entails, or what is entailed in a good fundraising story, then the next question would be, okay, so what formats can I use? You know, M-Changa provides a platform where you go in, you put in your story, you can upload your photos, you can upload, supporting documents and such. So when you're thinking of it in the bigger scheme of things, really it's about the format. The story could be in terms of text saying, hi, this is Eunice, this is what I've done, this is, it could be the text bit. But also the format could be in terms of pictures. It could be in terms of, infographics that would show, let's say if you're talking about, let's fundraise to plant 5 million trees in 1 year. An infographic would look like, you could say for every 50,000 trees that are planted, this is what it means. So you could do that very creatively and show that information. The other format that you can use is videos and animations. And videos here would be, you remember when you talked about it being very personal, being very authentic, being very truthful, you could just, using your phone, take a video of you saying, look, guys, I need to go to school. I need to go to university, but I don't have X amounts of money so that I can pay for my tuition. Please help me. So then you can do it as a video, or you can do it as an animation. We see social media campaigns a lot. We see people doing social media campaigns, with hashtags, support Eunice to go to school or something or the other. The other format that you can use is a podcast, and this would be really well done, especially for organizations or NGOs that are thinking about how then do we do fundraising for our project. The list here, it could be something that you could look at as an opportunity for you to tell your story. So a podcast is one of those places where you bring in the community who's going to benefit. You could even bring in funders. What are they looking for? So then you can bring in different people to speak about, into that particular podcast. You can also do adverts as well. We see this, we see adverts in the newspapers where you have, the call for help or an appeal, a medical appeal. So those are different formats that you can use for you to do your fundraising. But then there's also a creative way you can think out of the box and say, you know what, I am going to do coffee cups, where I'm going to say, for every coffee cup that you buy, 10 shillings has gone to, planting a tree, for instance. So when you're thinking about formats of storytelling, think not just within the box, but also out of the box. The coffee cups, the t-shirts, barazas here would be public meetings, where you can bring people to talk about, and almost like an harambe. For the Kenyans in the room would know this, harambe, where people come in and contribute and such. So there are different formats for different things, for different kinds of fundraising opportunities for you to use. And the beauty of all this is that each complements the other, and each helps to reinforce what message you wanted to say. Okay, so I'll go on to the areas of the stuff that you should avoid. In as much as you want to tell your story, your fundraising story, there's a likelihood you might be tempted to use, if it's a medical appeal, for instance, you might use a complex medical term that not everyone would understand. And the moment someone is reading a story and they stop and they're like, okay, do I need to get my dictionary to find out what this means? You're losing that person. This person won't go all the way to the end, to the call to action and say, oh, let me click here and pay, or click here and donate. So keep it simple, keep it very, very simple English. If it's English you're using, very simple words. If it's Kiswahili, whichever, don't go for the heavy words. Same for abbreviations. If there's anything, A, B, C, D, H, something, you don't need to put it. If you can't explain it, keep it out. You don't need to have it there. Statistics are good because then they contextualize, 1 in 10, someone would say, when you're talking about mental health, for instance, we say 25% of the population has a one or another form of mental, ailment. So if you're to bring it down into statistics, you probably say 1 in 4 people has a mental health illness, and I'm one of the 4. You see, so then you're not going to go into statistics in percentages and stuff, just humanizing those stats so that someone can actually say, oh, actually now I see it. So if I put in money towards this mental health campaign, this is what it's going to mean for this 1 in 4 people. So unpack those stats, let them be in words that people can understand. Of course, avoid cliches, stuff that people already know. It won't make your story authentic. It won't make your story stand out. So if you can stay away from cliches, some of them have run out of my mind now, but, things that a stitching, being my stitching time to save 9. I mean, you don't need to use those cliches. Tell your story in your own voice. You don't need to go into cliches. The other thing that you see in some fundraising stories, and I'm sure some of us probably have seen, is copy pasting what you thought worked for someone else elsewhere or another organization and saying, oh, if it worked for them, it can work for me. Your stories are different, your needs are different, your asks are different. So tailor it for your needs, so that you're not saying something that people already have seen or have consumed already. And of course, avoid deceit. Don't lie. Because fundraising, you remember what you talked about, fundraising is really about people. It's very human-centered. The moment someone realizes you are using deceit, then you throw them off, and highly likely they won't engage with you anymore. And of course, finally, don't sensationalize. You don't need to make it bigger than it seems. I know, probably, because of the desperation, you're thinking, you know what, I need people to listen, I need people to come in and help. But the moment someone can tell you're sensationalizing something, highly likely they'll say, okay, if they can sensationalize about this, how sure am I that this story is actually true? So you don't want someone starting to question and already canceling you before you actually get the help that you needed. Okay. And so now that you know what is your story, I mean, now that you know what a story is, the different components of a story, now that you know the formats that you can use, now that you know what you need to avoid, my ask really for each of us in this meeting is to think about, what is your story? What is that authentic story that you want someone to resonate with you? And what is your authentic fundraising story? Thinking about you want to fundraise, let's say you're fundraising because there's a house or and a community that their houses got burnt down, for instance. What is their story? Their story is that they need shelter. You see, their story is that they need somewhere, to keep warm. Their story is that they need you to help them to go, to be able to move from a point where they are in a conflict, they have a problem, into a place where they're handling, or they're looking at solutions. So think about this in whatever organization, in whatever it is that you're doing in your work. You're fundraising for environmental issues, you're fundraising for a film, for instance. You want to do a film, whatever it is that you're fundraising, find out what is your story. And when you're thinking about your story, think about whose voice is the best to tell your story. Organizations sometimes there's a temptation for them to say, oh, we went to the community, we made a difference, so we need to tell our story. Maybe not. Maybe you need to take a step back and say, let our community, let the beneficiaries tell their story. Let our funders tell the story of how or why they're putting in, their money or their resources or their time towards this particular activity or an event, or support that they're getting into. So what is your story? So I hope maybe when we talk in the course of this session, we'll get to see what is your story, how do you package it, now that you know the formats, now that you know what is necessary in putting in your story, so that you're not you don't confuse the different kinds of stories, because you could easily end up bringing in different things that do not necessarily help you in your fundraising endeavors. Okay, and so that's the end of my presentation. That's my name. That's where you can get me. If you need to talk about stories, to share with me a nice story that I could tell, or I could learn something from, more than happy to learn from that. Thank you very much. And these are the sources for some of what I use to prepare my slides. Thank you very much. Over to you, Naomi.
Okay, wow. Thank you so much, Eunice. That was quite insightful. And I like that you have really emphasized on how as a fundraiser, you need to pay keen attention on how you're telling your story, because most often than not, we tend to think this is about us, but it's not, because at every single point, have that outside eye that is looking in and seeing this story? Am I giving enough detail, or am I assuming that because I know this, the donor is going to also know that? So thank you so much for that. And Matt has joined us. So I would like to invite him to say hi to us, as he also gives a comment around fundraising in regard to what Eunice has presented. So Matt, welcome.
Hi everyone, great to be with you, and thank you so much, Naomi and Eunice. Actually, Eunice, I think you stole most of my content. I don't have much more I can add on how to tell a story, but I think the reason I was asked to join was to look at the business side of things. And I'm assuming most of this audience is Kenyan, so I can talk in Kenyan terms. So one thing that constantly comes up is, I know I can fundraise for a medical bill. That's very much understood. Like, it's in the culture, it's the Harambe, it's all that. But when it comes to business, people turn the question, what's in it for me? And that question comes up time and time again. What I think people don't realize is how much money that startups tap into to get going is crowdfunded. Whether you know it or not, crowdfunding is people coming together to support an idea or a project or something that they believe in. And so a quick question to everyone listening: what is the similarity between an individual, an organization, and a business? Now, the answer, I believe, is they're all centered around people. What people care about is other people. They don't care about businesses or brands or organizations. If I'm raising money for a cancer institute, I don't care about the cancer institute. I care about the impact they're trying to have on those individuals who are suffering. And when it comes to business, I believe the way you have to pitch yourself is to focus on the people. Who are you trying to serve? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but every business exists to solve a problem. At least every good business does. Now, if your business is solving a problem, then there's every right to raise money towards your business success. And you as the business owner have to believe in your own mission and your own reason for existing. If you don't believe in your business, nobody else will. But if you do, then you can convince other people to rally behind you and get that success. So my first point is crowdfunding for a business is possible, and raising funds is not just for individuals or for organizations. To illustrate that point again, look at some of the largest companies in the world, Apple, Google, Microsoft, those ones. Now, or even Safaricom, since they're in the room. Now, all of those companies are raising money at some point. There's nothing wrong with raising money because businesses need money to grow and to scale. And so whether you're just getting started and looking for, you've run out of your own savings and you need friends and family to support, or whether you're a massive corporate, you still need to raise money. And there's always someone who has money and someone who needs money, and it's about that matchmaking and connection of getting there. When it comes to storytelling, I think one of the best lessons I came across was Simon Sinek, who he had a TED talk called Start With Why, and he gave the example of Apple. So Apple doesn't come to its customers and say, we've built a new computer and it's much more powerful than the last one. They start with why. They start with, we want to create the experience that our consumers want to have. It's all about an experience of the product rather than just being a better computer, because at the time that they launched, the market was already taken up, and just stating what you do is not going to be enough. Now, how do you differentiate yourself as a business? And if you're raising money for your business, whether it's through crowdfunding platforms such as M-Changa or Thundafund, or even going directly to people, you will need to explain to them why your business exists and why they should be part of its success. And you're giving them an invitation. You're not begging them for money. It's not manipulation and tricking them into giving them your money. Many people are skeptical. They've been involved in pyramid schemes and all these things. So trust is something very difficult to build. And so the reason somebody's going to support your business is because of you. People give to people. They don't give to brands. They don't give to organizations. They don't give to things. So again, it comes down to you, your motivation as a business person, and what problem you are trying to solve. When it comes to, and I think this was alluded to from Eunice, the format matters. Now, you could write a very long description of your business and it could be very compelling, but I want you to challenge yourself. When was the last time you read something that was more than 1 page long? I'm sure it's very rare. And so don't expect other people to go and read big, long pieces of text. People like WhatsApp. They like short messages that they can read as they're on the move, whilst they're commuting. They like short videos, something that's engaging, that gets their attention quickly. So you need to get your message across quickly. If somebody needs more details, let them ask for it, let them look for it. But if you're trying to get somebody's attention, today, I think you have 30 seconds. And so anything that's longer than 30 seconds, just be careful because someone is going to be falling asleep. So yeah, I think, Naomi, I think I've captured the two key things I wanted to explore in terms of fundraising and business. And just for clarity, I'm involved with M-Changa, I'm involved with Thundafund. I've seen different types of fundraising and what works. And sorry, I'll come back to you in a minute. The person asking is really important. Like, if you don't have a network and that's your main concern, but what you're doing is brilliant, find someone who has a network who really cares about what you do and get them to help you with sharing. Like, there's ways of doing it. If your idea really is that brilliant, you are going to find a way to succeed. Okay, Naomi, let's go to you.
Okay. Thank you, Matt, for also reminding us that it is okay for us to get help when doing this from people maybe in our networks who have the influence and the ability to get more people onto knowing about the fundraiser. And so before we get into the question number 4, Michael, do we have a question that we can answer and that's related to the session we've just had?
Thank you so much, Eunice. Thank you, Matt and Naomi. That is a very, very great presentation. So I'm actually learning instead of moderating. So there's a first question from George, and this one is going to you, Eunice. George is asking that in case where someone is using a video to tell a story, how long should it be? So someone just doesn't know the length of the video. Then as you are answering that, then you can, I think Dennis joined later after you've introduced yourself. Dennis is asking that which organization are you working with? So kindly, that one will just be part of your introduction, which you did as you answer the length. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. I think Matt has alluded to this. Our attention span is reducing because of of the digital space that we currently we are working. So a good video, I would suggest, if you can, for something very quick and short, keep it in a minute. Do a 1-minute video, and you will for sure have someone watch it from beginning to end. When you think about it, think of it as I'm sure most of us are on, we access YouTube, and you see sometimes when you want to watch something and then there's an advert, there are some videos that are extremely short, like literally 10 seconds, and they tell you everything that they had to tell you. So it could be as little as 10 seconds, it could be as much as a minute. But then if that is if you want to put it on, on digital, on social. But then if you want to share it, say you package it and you want to maybe put it on your website, or you want to put it on a place where someone can sit and they have more time to go through it, then you can work maybe 3 minutes or so. But then there are people who would even do a whole documentary, like organizations would do a documentary for 15 minutes or something. They would even get media space. So it really depends on which platform you want to put it. You want to publish this video, and to who your audience is. Because if you're going to do a 15 minutes thing, then I'd imagine probably want to show it maybe during your annual meeting, you know, with the, I don't know, when you're having with your donors. But even then 15 minutes is too long, because people will check out by 3 minutes. Guys are thinking, okay, I need to be out of this place. So I would recommend keep it under 3 minutes. But if you want something quick and fast and pithy, and you sure people will watch, 1 minute. But if you're brave and you can tell a story in seconds, 10 seconds. Yeah.
Thanks, Eunice.
Oh,
If
and
I
then
can also,
yeah, sorry, Matt.
I was going to say, I agree with you. If people think about how much time they spend actually consuming content, you know, if it's on Netflix or YouTube, it's actually hours. So we recommend keeping it under a minute. People do spend time consuming content, but usually it's entertainment. And if it's going to be a documentary, then it's going to have to be really high quality and interesting. So yeah, the length of your video depends on how interesting it is. And unfortunately, to make it really interesting, you're probably going to need quite a big budget. So most of us out here are with a minimal budget. And so we want to keep it short. And yeah, so just consider what you keep attention to is going to be the same for your audience.
Yeah. I think Dennis had asked which organization I work for. I work at Safaricom. I am a manager content generation. So simply I tell stories.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for that. Naomi, back to you. I think that's the question. We are only taking that one. The rest will be able to at least handle during the Q&A. Over to you, Naomi.
Yes, thank you for the questions and also for the answers. And so now we are going to get into the last bit of the discussion, where we now have an important question where we have normally when you are an organization or when you are a business, the things that you want to maybe fundraise for are things that do not majorly have an instant appeal. And so, for instance, if I am fundraising to build a house, to build a building maybe for the beneficiaries, how best is it that you are able to, as a business and then as an organization, how are you able to create appeals onto your story just to maybe humanize it and make it better and give it appeal to people who are fundraising? So we will just like to get ideas from you, because you have been working with businesses and organizations that have raised funds for things in production and all that. And Eunice also, you have also worked in a space where you have been able to demystify very complex things into stories that are very consumable by people, the common person. And so I would just like to hear from you guys, what are some of the ways that people can be able to make sure that these stories have the appeal that it needs to be able to push people into donating to their fundraisers. So I believe Eunice or Michael, sorry, Eunice or Matt, one of you will start, and then the other will answer second.
Okay, I could go first. I think I'll give an example. I worked in a newsroom, and my role at the newsroom was to write and to tell stories about health and science. And so that meant that I was interacting with researchers and scientists. I was listening to complex stuff, very heavy, heavy kind of science stuff. So my role as a storyteller, as a writer, and as a journalist was to unpack all that heavy, complex stuff in a way that resonated with people. So how did this look like? So for the stories, for instance, that I did, something around cancer treatment, for instance. The researchers have done all these beautiful studies, taken time, and they've discovered that there's a relationship between, let me give an example, a relationship between, say, exercising and, exercising to improve the quality of life of someone who has cancer, for instance. But that is not how it was said. It was said in very complex, vocabulary and stuff. So the task here is, how then do you tell the story in a way that a cancer patient, a cancer caregiver, and you know, will look at this and say, you know what, I think it's talking to me. So how I would do it, I would tell it in ways that they would relate with. As storytellers, as journalists, we always say that we are, you know, journalists have the experts, you know, the thoughts of an expert. We think like the experts, we understand like the experts. But when we say it like a gossip, you know, a gossip will find the juicy parts to, you know, to say them. So it's the same thing for storytelling. So for me, when I was telling that story of how exercise is helpful to improve the quality of a cancer patient, I would say, you know, I'd break it down in the words. You know, like I probably would say, did you know 30 minutes a day out in the sun stretching can give you X number, you know, so it's something that someone can relate with. Now that is health. When I moved to UNEP, when I was writing about coral reefs, I mean, coral reefs are deep in the sea, down in the sea, like at the base of the ocean. So my task was to write about the importance of coral reefs and how these have been able, you know, why we should protect them. So how I used to do my storytelling was to look at how critical coral reefs are. You know, the life below water was critical for the life above water. So how I would do this is, did you know actually that coral reefs, you know, they're like they're like the underwater cities in the sea, but what they do is that they provide homes for fish. It's the same fish that out here on Earth we are depending on for livelihoods, for, you know, for income and such. So being able to make it matter. So if you're to destroy the coral reefs because of pollution, because of all these other things, then your fish, you won't be able to get your fish on your plate as you would in the next X number of years. You see, so making it matter, bringing it down to in a way that someone can understand. So my advice there would be, always think, you know, think like an expert, but speak like a gossip. How would you unpack it in a way that someone would understand as quickly, as efficiently as possible? Yeah.
Thanks, Eunice. I can come in here. So for someone who's starting a campaign and thinking about their strategy, think about the times when you use social media. So usually you're on transit or you're home. You're usually trying to escape work or escape boredom or something like that. So your mind is not looking for something to purchase. And so the immediate thing when you're reaching out to people is not to ask for money, but to spread awareness. Just like when you're in business, you're not trying to sell to people all the time. You're trying to build awareness and then make the sale. So with crowdfunding, if you post on Facebook one time, don't expect people to start funding your project. It doesn't work like that. But if you post it on Facebook and then you send someone a direct WhatsApp message, that they've seen it twice and they have that personal connection and they're far more likely to support. So you have to see it the same way. Your idea is to get eyeballs onto something that's interesting. I like your example of the coral. We had a campaign that was Now You See Me, which was about the preservation of sea turtles. Now, if I ask most people, they're not going to know much about sea turtles. So the first step is to inform. And turtles are basically the carriers of the ecosystem of the ocean. They travel long distances and they can tell us the health of the water and the pollution and things like that. And that's a reason why I should support them. So the message is just to hook me in. Now, to give you a closer example, if I go to the market, I'm sure you'll come across the saying, looking is free. The market seller wants you to touch it. They want you to smell it. They want you to feel it. Once you've engaged your senses, now I'm going to ask you to buy it. I'm 100% more likely to buy compared to just passing by and them shouting at me, you need to buy this. So it's about bringing people in, engaging their senses, engaging their emotion, and drawing them to a close. It's not a hard sell. People hate to feel like manipulated or forced to do anything. So just bear that in mind. The same ways that people use to get us to buy things are the same ways that we use to get people to fund our thing. And again, it's not about manipulation, it's about giving the opportunity and sharing that, inviting someone to support rather than kind of begging them to be part of it. Naomi, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry for that. Yeah, so I was saying that it is quite important to notice that you have mentioned that one. We should not make it be like a big deal. We should just imagine what it is that normally will happen and just apply that into the fundraising. And I also liked what Eunice mentioned, that think like an expert, but talk like a gossiper. So I hope that those two are going to help us find a way to create appeal to the to situations where we feel like our fundraising needs do not have an appeal. And so at this point, I will maybe allow Michael to join to now move in as we go into the Q&A session so that we can answer the questions that you have. So please feel free to drop more questions into the Q&A session. We'll be able to answer them for the next about 15 to 20 minutes. So Michael, over to you.
Thank you so much, Naomi. And I'll just be quick to at least give an answer to some two. Emmanuel is asking that will the recordings be shared with presentation with participants? I confirm that that will be shared. We said when we were starting that we'll be able to share the recordings plus the video. So kindly don't worry. You'll be able to have this in. You'll be able to have this. There's also a question that Eric is asking that what is your charge per fundraising? So Eric, if you are raising on M-Changa, M-Changa charge us a service fee upon withdrawal, which we will be able to charge you a service fee of 4.25% upon the withdrawal. So I'll straightly move to the Q&A. And the first question is from Steve Biko. Steve Biko is asking that, is it possible for you to work with a person on a one-on-one basis on fundraising? I think this one, Eunice and Matt, that is it possible that you can be able to assist someone one-on-one, not like the way we are in our webinar, but maybe after this you now engage someone one-on-one and just take them through the fundraising. So I'll be able to take a questions of two, then we'll be able to answer that. Then there's another question that how do we maintain a balance between the people we want to serve and the organization? For example, NGOs using the stories of individuals to raise funding. How do you know that? How do we maintain a balance between the people we want to serve and the organization? For example, NGOs using the story of individual to raise funding. How do you know that your organization is enough?
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I'll request Eunice to go first. Then thank you.
Okay. Let me just pull it up. How do you maintain a balance between the people we want to serve and the organization? I think an organization, your purpose should lead you. You know, if your purpose is to serve the community, if your purpose is to serve the people, that is who you're answerable to. You know, I mean, how you maintain the balance is if you, for whatever reason, you discover that you're putting more focus on yourself and not the community, then you need to tip the scales. Then you need to go back to the community and find out what do we need to do. So, for example, NGO using stories of individuals to raise funding. I mean, if that is how that is their business model, that this is how they'll be raising funds by telling people stories, then that's okay. I think maybe I'm alluding maybe the question that you wanted to ask, you know, how at what point do you know that this is enough, that you stop using people's stories for fundraising? Again, your purpose is what is going to advise. If you can tell, you know, how, if you can tell how, or you can see how success looks like, then it will be easier for you to say, okay, now we stop at this point, or we continue up until when we achieve success. So I guess, I don't know if I've answered the question correctly, but purpose. If you cannot be guided by what your mission vision is, then yeah, the community will come in second, which will unfortunately will not serve the community as you intended to.
Thank you. Matt, do you have something to add on top of that?
Yes. So I think there's a couple of things. It's knowing your purpose, as Eunice has said, and that really should be your guiding principle of why and what you do, and also to know your audience. So to give an example from effective altruism, they give the example of what's better. Do I fund someone from childhood all the way through university so that they can get a very high paying job and serve the community? Or do I pay for, I don't know, 50,000 deworming pills that could really help a community? Now, there's not particularly one answer to that question. It depends on who you are, what you deem as impactful. So when you ask, how do I know if it's enough? If it's in the space of development, it probably is never enough, right? There's always more need. So it's about knowing what your role is and being able to focus on the problem you're trying to solve is the only effective way. If you're distracted by every new thing that comes up, or let's say you're in cancer care and then there's an opportunity to get funding in solar, you should not lose your mission because you see an opportunity somewhere else. You should actually try to stick to your mission so that you can focus and achieve what your goal is. If you find that there's somebody doing what you're trying to do better than you, then you should question, am I the person to be doing this, or can I work with them? You should question your model constantly because the environment is always changing. Nobody can really answer that question for you, but really it should not be about you or the organization. It should be about what you're trying to achieve.
Thank you so much for that. And James was asking that, how do you keep the discussion interactive in terms of storytelling? I think that one was well covered during the presentation. And then Dennis, which organizations are Matt and Michael from, and can I get the contact? We'll be able to, Michael is from M-Changa. I serve at M-Changa as Business Development Officer. Matt is at M-Changa and also Thundafund. And we will be able to share the email address that you can be able to reach us out in case of anything. So kindly, Eunice, this is to you. Think like an expert, but talk like a gossiper. Kindly elaborate. Kindly just take a few minutes to explain that sweet word, which I'm also eager to know more about it. Over to you.
Okay, I'll give you an example. If a child is to ask you, if your child was to ask you, Dad, I see every day you wake up in the morning, you dress up, well, before that was pre-COVID, and I see you're going to work. What exactly is it that you do? What would you tell them? For instance, if I'm a doctor or if I'm a surgeon, I'd say I fix broken hearts, or I fix broken bones. But when I'm talking in my mind, I know that I'm a cardiologist at this level. I mean, I have all this expertise knowledge in me, but I don't need to say that. And you see, sometimes in communications and in to some extent also in fundraising, you go in and you can clearly tell this person is talking as if they're talking to fellow experts, because you have no idea what they're talking about. They're talking about, if we do not move in quick whatever, we will lose, in figures, percentages, and heavy complex science. People won't understand that. People cannot relate with that, because in conversational words, in conversational speak, people are more, you make it as simple as possible. So think about the child, your 4-year-old, or even your grandma. If your grandma, you went back to your village and your grandma asks you, I hear you people in Nairobi are now working from home. What exactly is it that you do? You won't tell them, I'm an auditor and I look at the numbers and these percentages, and you won't go that, the capex and all these things. No, you'll tell them, I make sure that, the money that we get, we manage it properly, or whichever you use simpler words. So you think like an expert, you know your subject matter, you are an expert in your field and everything. But when you're saying it like a gossip, simple, quick, pithy words. And if I was even to say it even quite literally, if you're thinking about a gossip does not put you waiting for a story for 10 minutes. In the shortest time possible, you can tell this is what happened, this is who was caught, doing whatever. So think about it the same way. Think like an expert, but then now unpack it in very simple, relatable language, and words.
Thank you so much for that, Eunice. There's an interesting question, which when you are setting up an account with M-Changa, we allow people to upload a photo. So you find someone is raising money for medical and they take a photo of someone, maybe someone who is suffering from cancer, and they take that picture, and the picture, when you look at it, you being as a human, you shtuka kidogo by seeing that photo. So there's something that working with persons with disability brings in the need to keep a lot of things confidential. How can we make a story that could be catching without spilling a lot of information that should be confidential? Organization, Gifted Community Center. So that is from Dennis. The second question is, what is the time frame per fundraising? Global funding gives a window of around 1 month. So I think I will be able to answer that when you are raising money on M-Changa, we don't limit you on the time of duration. You can run the account as long as you want, but there are some accounts that obviously they will have a duration. For example, you are raising money for an emergency response. There is a flood somewhere and you are helping to these people. Once you write a story there, you can't continue talking of this story even after the rains have, and it is no longer raining, things have gone back to normal, but you still want to raise money from people talking that you are helping these people who are affected by the flood. So I think that one I've answered. So I'll get it over to Eunice on the confidentiality of the information.
Yeah. I mean, that's a brilliant question, Dennis. Thank you for bringing it up. Confidentiality is always paramount. You should not put your, shouldn't cause harm to your, or in journalism, we call them sources, the people whose story you're telling. You shouldn't cause them any harm. How would you tell the story without exposing them? I'll give you an example with a story that I did. So there's a woman that I met in Thika. She was admitted in hospital a couple of times because she was overdosing on ARVs. And for the longest time, she would go, she'd be told, you need to take 2, you need to take this, and for her, whenever she'd go back to her house, she ended up taking either the wrong one or she'd take too many or too many tablets and such. What was the problem? The problem was that she was blind. ARVs and the drugs that we know do not have braille. So you can't, with braille, you can feel at the surface and say, oh, this is what this drug is saying, this is what, but that was not the case. So her story was that, the challenge of being blind and you still need to take ARVs without, getting overdosed and stuff. So you finding creative ways to show someone's plight without telling anything about them, So being able to say, for me, if I was to tell this story about disability, I would talk about, the challenges of, so blind is one thing. Imagine another disability, someone who cannot hear or someone who cannot talk, and they want to go and get, they want to get a HIV test. How do they do it? How do they say, I want to I want to get a test? How then, even if they go through, they jump that hurdle and they're able to get the test, how do they interpret the results? So you can show someone's story without ever mentioning their name. I have done stories. So that's another story that I've done. I've done stories of, of people who, have a physical disability, but they've been able to, go on dates, they've been able to find love, so you do not ever have to mention anyone's name. You can show what their plight is. You can show a case, in the first case, of someone who, was overdosing on ARVs because of something that was completely not taken into account, braille. You can talk about how difficult it is for, for help. So I'd imagine if I was fundraising for, say, the first one would be help us, get braille medicine, available in the country. And for you, it may not even be raising money. It could be fundraising, or it could be campaigning to ask for, pharmacies and organizations to include braille labeling. You see, so you do not have to mention anyone's name for you to tell their story. You can simply just show it. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much for that, Eunice. Matt, do you want to add something?
Yes, please.
Kindly.
I mean, for confidentiality, of course, getting permission is important. And if it's a sensitive topic, then avoiding putting people in it. But to take it one step further, let's think about dignity. Like, that's a very important thing. These platforms are public and people can see them and they can make an impression and they can have very damaging effects, even if that wasn't the intention. Look at the link I've posted on the chat from Global Giving. They've put a very nice short understanding of dignity and respect and confidentiality. So if you are an NGO, please do take a look at that and even print it out and give it to your team. But fundamentally, by building these platforms and putting these messages out to the world, you have to think, what is somebody going to see and interpret from this? We're not trying to guilt people. If you guilt someone into giving money, they'll give once. If you convince someone that I'm making an investment into the future, they'll give many times. So don't be short-sighted in how you appeal for money. Of course, shocking images get attention, but it's not what we want to put out there. And then look at Africa as a continent, or what do people see when they look at Kenya? Maybe they look at sport, or maybe they look at poverty, but we know that there's a lot of innovation, there's a lot of beautiful things here, there's things that are not out there in the general public. And it's actually up to us to tell that story and to be positive. People respond better to stories that have a character, and they respond better to pictures where people are smiling as opposed to being sad. So try to put that positive, hopeful approach in your fundraising rather than desperate and needy, because nobody wants to have that reputation of being desperate and needy, and it's not going to benefit your brand or your cause overall.
Thank you so much for that. I'll go to the next question from Elvis. He's asking that, what is M-Changa and what do I need to raise funds for my business on your platform? So M-Changa is an online fundraising platform that provides Kenyans with a secure, transparent, and convenient way to raise funds. We ensure that fundraisers reach their fundraising goals quickly, easily, and with the lowest cost possible. I'll take the last question because we are having 6 minutes remaining. So and most of the questions have been answered. I'll check if there are more, then we'll be able to, but just a quick one. Steve is asking that, what is the best methodology in telling a change story from an organization's point of view in raising when trying, what is the best methodology in telling a change story from an organization point of view in raising when trying to raise funds for an organization? Matt, kindly, you'll go first.
I'm trying to understand the question. Hang on.
Okay.
I mean, if you're an organization that's been around for a while, then you can always use stories from the past. People like to see success, so examples and real life cases. So make it relatable that way, if I'm understanding that, if that's what you're asking by methodology. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how else to answer that. Eunice, any idea?
Eunice, are you getting the question?
I think the question is around, it could be about, I as an organization, should I do stories? Should I do pictures, the goodies and all that? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So what method or what tool, what formats should you use? I think for you to know what would work best would be better if you knew who your audience is and where they'll get your information. So if you do, let's say, photos or photo stories, and you share them on WhatsApp, or it really depends on what method and where your audience is, because your audience at the end of the day is who is most important. If your audience cannot find you where they need you, then you could do some beautiful videos, but they would just be that. They would just be, they would be sitting nicely on your YouTube page. So when you're thinking about what format, what format for you to use, think about your audience. But then there's some that are cross-cutting. You definitely can't go wrong if you do short short videos, what we talked about, the 10 seconds, 1 minute or so kind of videos. You can't go wrong if you do, if you do short written stories. Think about, if in terms of tweets, or a Facebook post, and then you include some photos inside. So it really matters where your audience is going to get your content, but there are those that are cross-cutting. Keep it short, keep it succinct, keep it very, very interesting. Then you have more likelihood of someone engaging with your content, regardless of whichever format that you used. And also, sorry, just to add on that, I think also the other thing is for brands, and not really brands, but even individuals and organizations to think about, find out from other people who are like you, your peers, what are they using? Is it working? Is it something, how did you find that information? Then see if you can replicate and maybe tweak it to serve your need.
Thank you so much for that, Eunice. So I'll just to wind up on some questions for some people. Some people are asking that what do they need to raise on M-Changa? In M-Changa, once you set up an account for the purpose of transparency and accountability, we always ask you to provide 3 people to be treasurers, or we always ask you to provide people to be treasurers in the account. That will always vary based on what you're fundraising for, but it's always a maximum of 3. And we also require a document just to confirm that if it's a registered organization, we always require a document for the verification. And if for hospital, we always require hospital bill or admission letter for us to verify the accounts. Elvis asking that, how do I access M-Changa? Are you on Play Store as an app? So I might have shared our website page. Kindly just visit www.changa.co.ke. You'll be able to find much about us there. I'm seeing there's no hand that no one is raising his or her hand. So I'm sure I'm not locking anyone out. And up to that point, I'll be able to take it back to Naomi as we wind up. We are almost in time. And all the questions have been tackled. Naomi, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And thank you everyone who's been with us from the beginning till now. Thank you, Matt and Eunice, for taking your time to come and speak with us today. We appreciate, and personally, I have learned a lot, and I believe all of us have. We are going to share with you the recordings either tomorrow evening or on Monday morning. So the recordings and all the relevant links that have been shared on the chat are going to be included in that email. So don't worry about that. We will do that. Michael, also, thank you for assisting with moderating. And yeah, thank you, everyone. We look forward to having you again soon. Yeah, thank you.